Hi, everyone. This is Rohit from Rise to Mastery, and today I'm excited to have Mr. Nitin Agarwal, who's the CEO of GlobalBees, which acquires and partners with digitally native brands across categories such as beauty, personal care, home and kitchen, food and nutrition, sports and lifestyle, with a revenue rate of $1 million to $20 million. Nitin was earlier CEO at Brianvisa. He had earlier worked with brands like Bigshoesbazaar, Incred, WeCash, and Edelweiss. And he's done his BTech from IIT Delhi. GlobalBees has raised one of the largest Series A funding, which has been led by FirstCry and Lightspeed Partners. Welcome to the show, Nitin.
Thank you, Rohit. Happy to be here.
Awesome. So you have a great resume. You've been part of a lot of great companies. Now, how did you get your way into the world of startups?
Well, I've been into the world of startups for about 20 years, to be honest. I started my first venture way back 20 years back. So it's been an exciting world. I think having done multiple startups and seen the world through, couldn't go anywhere else. I think that's the calling. Thoroughly enjoy building the business from first principles and see how it's changing and be part of that change. So thoroughly enjoy that experience and hope to follow that experience and success.
Interesting. And I before the call I mentioned I worked on a direct to consumer brand. I was selling products through Amazon and Shopify channel. And it's very interesting that you're trying to build a model, looking at direct to consumer brands. What got you interested to look at a business model like this and work on GlobalBees?
To be honest, if you look at from a business model perspective, it's something which is existed. You are able to roll up and buy innovations across the world and create great enterprise layer across and create a large companies. But fundamentally, if you think of it, we're doing two things. If you look at any consumer company, they have a great distribution, they have a great branding, they have great platform to distribute their products. Where the consumer companies literally lack is innovations, right? And especially when you look at consumer products, the retail shelf space is at a lot of premium, right? Every time they innovate or put a new product, they'll replace an old product from that retail shelf space because it's been limited. With digital, that retail shelf space has literally become infinite. But however, the innovation has continued to lack in the large consumer companies. And one of the things that we've always realized, saying the great brands, the niche brands get created, but literally they don't find a home because of lack of that scalability. So we said, why don't we create the digital native distribution and technology platform? At the same time, a way to aggregate these great innovations and scale them under a big umbrella, creates a new recipe how a new consumer company would look like. And that's really our idea in terms of saying a modern age consumer company needs to be able to harness the innovation at scale, which can typically not happen within a corporate environment. And that's where the acquisition model comes into place. So we look at the companies who've created a differentiated product, who've created a differentiated product market fit, a customer communication, a customer positioning, but at the same time will have challenge as an individual stand-up brand with respect to the life. And if we can continue to partner with these great innovations, and we think that those great innovations will be there for next 100 years. So this model is not about saying we do the first 20, 30, 40, 100 acquisitions. I think the innovations will keep on happening. And if you create that ecosystem where we are able to absorb that innovation and scale it as per the market requirement, it's a win-win situation for both the innovator of the product and as a platform GlobalBees. And that's literally the idea of GlobalBees.
And the last couple of years has been a great acceleration point for direct to consumer brands. What makes the major online platforms, especially Amazon and Flipkart, so powerful for direct to consumer companies?
I think two things. The first time when you look at Amazon and Flipkart, it's the first time when you have had a completely democratic platform where I can bring in a product, I can quickly launch a product, I can do my communication without putting all the infrastructure. I mean, I can literally innovate a product, put it on Amazon, and do a product market testing, right? And that makes it very, very exciting. That's number one. Secondly, historically, when you looked at markets or a product, you will always had niche pocket of demands, and there was no way to address a niche pocket of demand, and it became unviable for niche pockets of demand to be fulfilled. The e-commerce makes that niche pocket of demand universally available. So you can, if you look at India from a context or any other geography, if a neighborhood of 50 kilometers area had a pocket of demand of $1 million, you probably would not be able to, or the large brand would not be able to maybe fulfill that pocket of demand, but because it's a niche brand and if you were to set up the offline distribution, you would not be able to do that. I think the digital platforms allow you to create that niche pocket of demand, consolidate that demand, and create a meaningful business, which was not possible in an offline scenario. And that's where the innovation also comes in play, right?
Correct. And what do you think are some of the challenges for smaller companies to sell on these marketplaces? And when do you think they need a company like GlobalBees to really help them scale up?
I think it's one thing to build that MVP, as we call it, right? I mean, you can go to one marketplace, you can do one product innovation, you've got a super success out of it, and you build a great business. But when you start taking step 2 and step 3, right? The next marketplace, the next innovation, how do you get the cycle going? How do you reach to a broader customer? How do you expand your product range? I think that's where it starts getting complicated. A lot of entrepreneurs or smaller businesses, they're great at doing everything on their own, but they may not be great at building the enterprise behind it, building people organization behind it, building the technology platform which is required to scale up, building that consistency in delivery, consistency in quality, and change. I think those are all the challenges which these great innovations will follow, and that's where GlobalBees come in. Where we come in and partner and take these great innovations and entrepreneurs and lead them through that direction to be able to build more sustainable and longer term businesses.
And again, what does GlobalBees do to the products that you acquire? And to the teams? Do they also work along with GlobalBees, or is there a separate team which works on scaling the products and the businesses?
So obviously the products, we bought the company for the products, so products has to stay. Right. But yeah, when we go into a partnership, we actually look at the not just the product, but how we can extend the product portfolio. What does the brand stand for in a consumer mind? Where is the extension? Where is the efficiency, and so on and so forth. So we would go deeply into all those perspectives about the product and look at what is the brand potential over a period of time, just beyond saying, sell and milk the whole product. So that's literally how we look at that. Your second question is around the teams. So we love the teams to come together, to be honest. We do not saying, oh, we have the entire infrastructure, we're going to take over this brand and you can go home and enjoy the vacation, although you do have that choice. But at the same time, if there are entrepreneurs who want to be a part of a bigger success story and bigger play, and we ourselves being a young company, we're going to need a lot of good leaders to be able to expand this platform. We enjoy and prefer that entrepreneurs come and join the journey with us for at least a period of time, which could be 2 years and 3 years, and build out the brand and use the ecosystem and build out the brand with us. So that's the question, but not always happens. But that's what we prefer.
Correct. And usually, when it comes to direct consumer brands, what are the margins that you look at, which the D2C brand should have, and how are these businesses typically valued?
Well, see, margins again depends on the category. You can't put all D2C brand into a single bucket, right? A fashion is driven very differently than electronics or the large appliances or a food segment or a home improvement segment. So margin profiles are actually very different for each segment. I cannot give you a universal answer to that, but typically the margin profiles are not very different from how it happens in offline retail. I think the cost of the business is online is not very different from cost of doing business in offline. It's just the reach and democratic and place, I think, which changes. In terms of a valuation, again, in terms of the business that we look at, we want the business to be profitable, not just at EBITDA level, and we can look at the EBITDAs differently as well. But what we essentially look at unit economics, as we call it as a CM2, contribution margin 2, they need to be fairly making sense and not just being positive. They need to be able to make sense. And then belief of our team and the analysis of our team saying this is the accretive business which sustains on its own, which can be built on a large self-sufficient business. And that's what we look for. And the valuations are again driven by a lot of factors. I think in India specifically, India continues to be a growth market. So there are obviously those multiples of revenues, but there are also the growth multiples and the category multiples, and a lot of other filters that we apply, the uniqueness filter to the product category. So there are a lot of filters which are applied before we can arrive at a valuation. So it's not a single matrix. It depends on the category. It depends on a lot of filters. But yeah, I mean, one thing I can say, people have a lot of misnomer, at least around this model in India specifically. We've done some math, with a lot of entrepreneurs. I can say from the ability of the entrepreneurs for 99% of the time, their ability to have money in their bank and pocket vis-a-vis a VC and PE investment as well, it's not any less. Whether they can partner with GlobalBees or want to do standalone. I think it's about a different way of working. The kind of leverage that a platform like GlobalBees provides with respect to the efficiency, with respect to not diluting the business any further while you are able to scale the business in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I think it's a great outcome for the entrepreneurs.
Correct. And, I have exclusively worked on Amazon and Shopify and some of these marketplaces, but what do you think, what are retail companies doing to combat these marketplace places where, most of these direct to consumer brands are focusing on? Do they look at, offline retail companies, do they look at these marketplaces as a threat, or are they trying to combat and do something about it?
Yeah, so see, in any new ecosystem, whenever the new distribution channel will come in, people will try and figure out. And the retail companies look at it this like the 8 blind people trying to touch the elephant. You will find different perspectives of people and how they look at it. Some embrace it, some look at it skepticism. Ultimately, our belief is all of them will have to come to this platform. This is an alternate channel. From an India context, if you look at last 20 years, India was largely a general trade market. It moved to a modern trade, and when modern trade came in, a lot of FMCG companies or consumer companies did not know how to address that ecosystem, and they learned it on the way. Similarly, I think COVID has taught a lot of consumer companies who are still on the sidelines to adopt that ecosystem and trying to make a bridge. It's obviously hard and challenging because the kind of skill set required, the conflict of the channel, the conflict of the pricing, and what works in offline probably does not work in online and vice versa. I think those strategies need to figure out, and they are much, they're harder than what they look. And that's where the consumer companies, a lot of old age consumer companies continue to struggle. And that also creates the opportunity. I think that's one on the distribution side. I will again come back to the point of innovation. Most of the consumer companies are not attuned to innovation. They'll bring a product, they would want it to last for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, except for, the Samsungs and the Boats of the world, to be honest, who have a timeline defined to launch their every product. But if you look at some of the other products, I think the same washing powder would be using for 20 years and it's going on and on. Very little innovation would come in there. So I think we just continue to use the word innovation. And I think that's where the moat is.
Correct. And, would GlobalBees take the brands that they've acquired and create a, separate marketplace for the products?
Not really. See, we are not a retailer. I mean, we've been very clear. We are a brand, right?
Yeah.
And brand needs to have storefronts. When you say storefronts, we'll have our brands which are selling on the Shopify stores, the Amazon stores, the Flipkart stores, the social commerce stores, and so on and so forth. We don't want to create our own storefront outside the brand storefront in that sense, which obviously is there for the brands we acquire itself. But outside that, we want to utilize as much distribution channel as existing in the world, and that's what we'll continue to do and partner with those distribution channels.
Correct. And while I was trying to build my own direct consumer brand, I struggled to build a brand around the business, and especially when it comes to marketplaces, a lot of times there were other competitors who are trying to invade into my listing, and they're trying to delist me, especially in the Amazon marketplace. How important it is to build trust, and how do you look at what advice would you give to direct to consumer brands who are looking to build their brand across their products?
I think the way we see it is in the old economy and new economy, I think there's a huge divergence. I think in the old economy, we've all looked at the brand and brand marketing and the very strong brand marketing, to be honest. And a lot of those companies are beginning to learn what is performance marketing, right? And when you look at the digital first companies, they're too much performance marketing and they're trying to learn the brand marketing. Right balance and somewhere in between, to be honest. And I think one of the mistakes that we see a lot of D2C brands making is too focused on performance marketing and not enough strategy clear on the brand marketing side. But I would say both are important. And I think both extremism hurts. Old economy relying too much on brand marketing and not following a performance marketing, and vice versa. So the balance is in between, but the D2C brands we see, most of them carry that notion of performance marketing and not being clear about their strategy on brand marketing.
Correct. And Instagram and Facebook shops are some of the largest digital shopping platforms, but the cost of acquiring the customer through these platforms is getting more and more expensive. Are there other mediums, especially like TikTok and other platforms, that you would suggest brand owners to look at to acquire more customers?
Well, TikTok, till the time it was allowed in India, was a great platform, to be honest.
Yeah.
Now it's not available in India. But yes, I think more and more newer platforms are emerging, and they're making a significant presence. Not just TikTok in India, we have Meesho, which is India's first social commerce model, and it's been replicated across the world. Great business in terms of distribution. So yes, I think the new channels will continue to develop. That's number one. And as an agile company, you need to be able to figure out these new models, capture them fast, capture them early. If they are reaching the right consumer, that is very, very important. At the same time, everybody complains saying, these platforms are becoming expensive. The point is, the cost is same for everybody, right? You are in a capitalist world. There is somebody else who can afford it, and if you can't, you have to figure out the reason why you can't afford it. Is it a better brand pull? Is it a better margin? Are you right product fit? I think those questions need to be answered. We'll continue to hear those challenges of cost, but it's universal, right? It's equitable. Nobody is unfairly treated in that world, to be honest, in that sense. So that's part of the business.
Correct. And when it comes to D2C brands, I've seen there's a lot of at times a lot of reliance on Chinese manufacturing companies. So do you think there'll be a shift from China to India and to other countries, and will some products cease to exist if there'll be some trade war which escalates over the next few years of there's too much reliance on China?
Two parts to this. So at least from an India context, we're seeing a lot of manufacturing revolution itself coming to India. We are seeing a lot of small scale manufacturing units being set up. Over the past couple of years, there are multiple products that we are seeing which were historically made in China or imported in China being produced in India. So that will continue to happen. I think that shift will continue to happen. I don't think at any point of time the businesses itself will be shut down because ultimately the products are driven by consumer demand. While the cost of imports or the method of import may change and some countries may shift, but I don't see a product going out of or a business being threatened on that sort. I think you have to be in lookout. There has to be, as you say, a backup plan in the business which has to be created. But I don't think the businesses will go out. But a manufacturing shift will continue to happen depending on how India continues to develop those capabilities. Some capabilities will take much longer to develop, and some capabilities are already there in India and scaling up in India in a much better fashion than imports from anywhere outside India.
Correct. And I was wondering when you look at evaluating companies and brands, what is the due diligence that you do when you look at acquiring a company? Because they are totally dependent on, at times they are totally dependent on these marketplaces to run their revenues. So any tips on what are the due diligence that you do?
Yeah, so we have to do a proper due diligence. I think law of the land, there's obviously the financial numbers which are I think easier to ascertain, especially in the digital world, because you've not seen any cash transaction happening. So there is a bank transaction and proper accounting being followed in that sense. So that's kind of simpler in that sense. I think more is around whether there are compliances and the law of the land has been followed. I think that's our major focus. That's important from GlobalBees perspective, that to ensure that all licensing has been followed, all law of the land, taxation laws, they've been followed. So that becomes very, very important aspect of our diligences. And important aspect of diligences happens on IP. It's very important, whether it's on brand name, whether it's formulation, so on and so forth. If you are into some kind of manufacturing like a food products or beauty cosmetics, if you're claiming an IP, how valid that IP is, what kind of practices have been followed, what sort of certifications have been followed. I think those become an important aspect of our diligences.
Correct. And I've seen the last couple of years Amazon has also got into manufacturing or selling products. How do you look at Amazon? How can D2C brands, if they're looking to sell on Amazon, how should they look at competing with Amazon Basics, which is a product that a brand name through which they sell on?
Amazon has had their brand name. Even if you look at US, they've had their brands for some time. It's not something which has come recently. They've been there for over 10 years, where I think 7-8 years, if I remember correctly. So they've had their private brands. I think at the same time, Amazon own's philosophy is to provide that choice to the customer, right? And as long as you're focused on what you're doing, you're providing that value, you continue to grow. And we've seen all the D2C brands, whether in the US, whether it's in India, continue to grow in parallel with the Amazon's own brands as well. So I think this is no different. I mean, to be honest, it is no different than Walmart or Costco's creating their private labels. Every retailer has created private labels in offline scenarios for the last 30-40 years. And so is Amazon, which is also a retailer online, but that has never killed the brand business. So I wouldn't think too much about it, to be honest.
Correct. And what advice would you give to founders who are just focused on selling on marketplaces? When should they really look at an omni-channel strategy to sell, and should they get out of marketplaces, especially like Amazon?
I think from an India perspective, the omni-channel strategy should be should be thought very early, to be honest. Marketplaces are a very, very good way to do a product market fit assessment, right? You can quickly launch a product, put certain advertising dollars, see what's the response, see what's the feedback. But I would say run this parallelly as you scale. Define your targets, whether those are 5% or 10% or 15%, whatever fits your business perspective. But you should always have that ability to directly connect to consumer and have the omnichannel strategy in place right from day one.
Correct. And how do you has the pricing and valuation for brands changed post COVID, or do you think the valuations for direct to consumer brands have been similar to what it had been, which is like 2 to 3 times of the revenues they make?
Well, again, it depends on category to category. To be honest, it can't be one, right? When you look at something like a electronics category, the multiples will be very different than a FMCG category, than a home improvement category. So I don't know where this 2, 3 number comes in. It can be 1, 1.5 for certain categories. It can be 10 for certain categories. I think it's more of a misnomer. And when you look at the markets in general, whether it's public and private, valuations are not just a phenomenon of COVID and pre-COVID. I think there are a lot of factors. There are liquidity, there are interest rates, the global liquidity, and so on and so forth. Every time you look at any QE, you see stock markets going up, right? And it's amazing, right? QE is done to take the economy out of trouble, so to say, right? And at the same time, markets go up, right? So you don't know if the economy is doing bad or good, right? In that sense. So yeah, I think the valuations will keep on fluctuating. Liquidity is a major factor on those, how valuations kind of prefer. But yeah, don't think too much about it.
All right. And I quickly want to do the top 3. What's your favorite business book?
Sorry?
What's your favorite business book?
Oh, wow. Well, more than a book, to be honest, I won't say 3. I think in past 5 years, my most admired read has been everything about what Satya Nadella has done. I think a company, to be able to take a company with that stature, with that revenue, with that breadth, and change the direction of the company in the time is done. It's amazing. So everything in terms of what Satya House been able to maneuver the business is completely fascinating to me. I think it's one of the few examples where saying a company at that large scale can be maneuvered into a modern age direction, which honestly is very, very hard. And that's been my biggest and most fascinating, right? A lot of people find Elon very fascinating. He's crazy in his own way. But I think the whole ability, given that I've worked in enterprise companies, and being able to maneuver that has been the most fascinating for me.
Got it. We'll put that in the show notes. And if you could go back in time when you started working on GlobalBees, what is the one thing you would have focused on or done anything differently?
As of now, I would say we're making good mistakes. So we're learning from that. And I hope we continue to do more inexpensive mistakes and continue to learn from there. But very happy with how the journey has been. It's been amazing. In fact, from an Indian market, there was a lot of skepticism in terms of depth of the Indian market, these sellers, the pricing, and so on and so forth. And all of us at GlobalBees, including our partners, have been pleasantly surprised in terms of the depth that India offers, the opportunity India offers. And yeah, we're fairly excited about it.
Got it. And do you have any favorite online tool, for example, Gmail, Slack, Zoom?
Microsoft Teams. I thought that answer was obvious when I talked about Satya.
Yeah, I think that's the first Microsoft Teams from the guests I've had on the show. We'll put that in the show notes. Nitin, what is the best way people can reach out to you and know more about GlobalBees?
Well, I'm available on LinkedIn, so that's the way to do. But we have our website. Yeah, I can assure you'll get response whether you get in touch with us LinkedIn, whether you write to us on our website. You are guaranteed to receive a response fairly quickly, and we are always there to work and talk to the people, and it's a good learning.
All right, we'll put that in the show notes. Then thank you so much for taking our time speaking to us. I really enjoyed my conversation with you.
Thank you, Rohit.